Hey, it's Xtoller. I had to pack a lot into this video, so don't forget to use the key moments if you want to jump to a specific area. If you don't know focus casting, you need to watch this video. Even if you think you know focus casting, you're going to learn new things in this video. Focus casting is extremely important to the mezzing classes, but every class in a group can be impacted by it. Did you know that mobs get a buff when Mesmerize is cast on them? What is this buff and what does it do? The buff is called Focus Casting, and when you hover over it, the description says, cast speed reduced significantly. Just how significantly? Very significantly. Focus Casting allows a mob to instantly activate a spell or ability, and I'm going to use the word spell throughout the rest of this video, but I did want to stress that this impacts both spells and abilities. This ability exists even at level 1. This bat is going to get the Focus Casting buff. Did you see it cast Sonic Screech? Not the first one, I interrupted that with Fixate. The second one, which was instant. Here it is slowed down. You can see the bat insta-cast the ability, and normally it's a 2.5 second cast time. But with Focus Casting, it's insta-cast. Mobs get Focus Casting if Mez is cast on them, even if it's resisted. The buff will last 10 seconds, although in some situations it can drop sooner based on the mob's actions. I have this mob mesmerized and I remez it, which gives it focus casting again. The buff goes the full 10 seconds because the mob is just sitting there CC'd. Focus casting will drop if the mob does any damage to a player and they must actually damage the player. If the damage is being absorbed by a shield, the buff won't drop. In this clip, the mob gets focus casting, but when it hits me for 28 damage, the buff drops. And in this fight, the mob is hitting me, but focus casting doesn't drop because all the damage is being absorbed. When the shield drops and I actually start taking damage, that's when the buff drops. Focus casting will drop in 3 seconds once a mob has insta-cast a spell, but other spells can be insta-cast during those 3 seconds. The Seer in this fight gets Focus Casting. It insta-casts one spell and Focus Casting begins to fade, but the mob insta-casts a second spell before the buff drops. It's almost impossible to see which spells were cast. One was Restore Spirit, a heal, and the other, White Wind, a buff. You'll see the first insta-cast is when Fascinate is at 1 second, and the second insta-cast is when Fascinate is at 2 seconds. 2 spells cast in 1 second. But focus casting does not speed up a spell if it lands on a mob that is in the middle of casting. That spell will take the usual time, and the next spell will be instacast. In this clip, I'm casting Mesmerize, but the Seer resists it, giving them focus casting in the middle of casting White Wind, but notice that the casting timer doesn't change. The next spell is Instacast, of course, and it's Ancestral Fire, which is not a good one if you're trying to mez mobs. Necromancer CC seems to follow the same rules for focus casting, but I haven't done a lot of testing with it yet. Mobs are using focus casting all the time in fights when CC is involved, but you just don't notice it. Most of these instant spells are handled by the group, but the wrong ability at the wrong time can be a potential wipe. And here are some examples. In this fight, I learned some of it the hard way. This Seer cast Ancestral Fire, which was breaking my mezes, but it was insta-cast and I didn't see it. So I just kept casting mez, and I wasn't sure what was breaking it.
Got him. He's getting woken up, I think, again.
Is he dotted? What's going on?
Nope, he's not dotted.
And in this one, the mob has focus casting, but it's mezzed, at least until someone breaks it, and it hits me with insta-cast silence. Now we have an ad running loose with an Enchanter that can't mez for 10 seconds. And here's one where I was re-mezzing a mob just as the Dire Lord pulled it, and they got rewarded with an insta-throat punch from the mob. I've seen focus casting work on spells with a 2.5 second cast time. I'm not sure it affects all non-channeled mob abilities, but I would guess it does. It'll be interesting to see if we find abilities or spells that it doesn't affect. Focus casting is always going to be a threat if you're mezzing. Probably the best thing you can do is debuff the mob ahead of time if you're able to, and have that stun ready in case the mob resists one of your mezzes. This way, at least they're not going to be able to use that focus casting. Mobs with certain AE abilities can be extremely dangerous if they get focus casting. In these cases, all group members need to be aware and need to work together to help limit focus casting by silencing or stunning these mobs that are getting CC'd. I hope you found this video useful. I'm Xtoller. Have fun in Terminus.